A suitcase left in front of a school gate exposed an entire culture of kindness that only existed on papers. 6:00 a.m. In front of Brookshire International Academy, a place where each semester's tuition could easily buy a used car with working air conditioning. An elderly man with sun-worn skin carrying a thermos of coffee and wearing a slightly borrowed-looking security uniform quietly stepped inside. He paused in front of a plaque that read, "Where future leaders are nurtured." He muttered under his breath, "Let's just hope they don't treat the security guard like part of the scenery." His real name was Walter Grant, the founder of this very school, 25 years ago. But today, he was simply Uncle Walt, the new security guard. No one knew the real reason he had returned. A string of anonymous emails had accused the school of discrimination, of adults turning a blind eye, and of children being quietly cast aside beneath a polished reputation. At exactly 7:00 a.m., students began arriving, crisp shirts, designer backpacks, eyes focused, straight ahead. Walter greeted them, but most passed by as if he were completely invisible. A teacher passed by and frowned when Walter asked, "Excuse me, that student doesn't seem to have an entry card." "Not your concern," the teacher replied curtly, then walked away. Right at that moment, a little girl with curly hair and thick glasses timidly stepped forward. "Sir, have you had breakfast yet?" Maya, the daughter of the school's janitor, held out a homemade muffin, slightly squashed but warm with care. Walter accepted the muffin and smiled his first genuine smile of the day. "Thank you, sweetheart. I think the taste of hope is the best flavor of all." His first shift passed by as if Walter had never existed. Students brushed past him like the wind. Some had headphones in, others stared down at their phones, and more than a few gave him irritated glances when he accidentally stepped too close. A group of high schoolers walked by, and one of them muttered, "Bet he's just an actor, testing for a Netflix role." The group burst into laughter. No one looked back to apologize. By recess, Walter stepped into the guard's break room, a small space tucked next to the equipment shed, furnished with a creaky folding chair and a coffee machine that required a silent prayer every time it was used. He was about to pour himself a cup when the head security guard, Uncle Kenny, clicked his tongue and said, "Oh, that's the special coffee reserved for night shifts or people who just got a raise." Walter raised an eyebrow. "So when am I allowed to drink it?" "Probably when you get promoted to principal." Kenny smirked. That afternoon, Walter stood post at the front gate. The sunlight pierced through the leaves, casting his shadow across the brick path like a faded line of time. Suddenly, Maya ran up holding a small paper bag. "I brought you some tissues, sir. You kept sneezing this morning. My mom said the monsoon's coming." Walter looked at her with the frayed strap backpack, the mud-stained shoes, and a gaze that didn't see a guard, but a person. She waved goodbye and ran off, her curly hair bouncing like a little cloud. Walter watched her go, his chest tightening, not from the long shift, but because, all day long, she was the only one who had truly seen him. At 3:47 p.m., shadows began to stretch across the stone walkway near the school gate, while clearing fallen branches after a strong gust of wind. Walter's eyes caught something unusual. A black suitcase sitting quietly by the fence, silent and out of place, like a question no one dared to ask. He immediately picked up the walkie-talkie. "There's a suspicious suitcase right outside the gate," requesting the front desk or a manager to come down and check. The response came back in a sluggish voice. There are cookies in the meeting room. Could you bring a few up instead? 5 minutes later, Kenny, the head security guard, finally showed up. He looked at the suitcase and burst out laughing. Probably someone's gym clothes. They're too embarrassed to claim. Smells bad, I bet. A teacher passing by overheard, frowned and sighed. What kind of school is this, where everyone assumes a suitcase is a bomb? Probably just some poor student's bag. Don't make a big deal out of it. Then walked off. No one asked what was inside. No one suggested taking it to the office to check. Only Maya, with her red scarf crooked to one side, came running over. Worried, "Sir, what if the person who lost it comes back and can't find it?" Without waiting for an answer, she helped Walter drag the suitcase to a sheltered corner. It was heavier than he expected. As he lifted it, he heard a faint clicking sound inside, like books gently knocking against each other. That night, while chewing on a cold sandwich in the break room, Walter watched the suitcase on the security monitor. He didn't know why, but something about it felt like a missing piece. A small fracture, just enough to make him decide. Tomorrow, he will open it, late at night. His shift had ended, and Walter was preparing to leave when the walkie-talkie crackled. "Uncle Walt, the basement supply room needs cleaning. Management said you should be flexible." Flexible. The polite way of saying, everyone else is avoiding it, now it's your turn. Walter said nothing, just nodded, then walked into the supply room like a soldier heading into battle with a mop in hand. But while scrubbing the floor near the teacher's lounge, he heard voices drifting through the wall. "Are the scholarship kids going on the field trip tomorrow?" "Nope. PRs take photos. They're keeping them back for a cleaner image. Their clothes look too old." A soft laugh followed. "We're an international academy, not a charity, right?" Walter frozen. He looked into the glass panel beside him and saw his own reflection. The founder of the school, mopping the floor. And in that moment, he realized what needed cleaning wasn't just the stain on the tiles. He left the basement. In silence, went straight to the suitcase, still resting quietly under the security camera. He placed it on the desk and opened the lock. No bomb, no contraband, just a faded school uniform, a few worn-out textbooks held together with tape, and a small red notebook. On the first page, in careful handwriting, "Science notes written for myself, because I'm too afraid to speak in front of the class when my uniform is wrong." At the bottom of the suitcase was a temporary suspension notice. Student name Selena Ruiz, daughter of a kitchen staff member. Reason: failure to comply with uniform policy negatively affects the school's image. Walter closed his eyes. The suitcase wasn't heavy because of its contents. It was heavy because of the silence. The silence of an entire system that judged children by the labels stitched on their collars. The next morning, a light rain was falling. Walter didn't take his usual post at the gate. Instead, he stood right in front of the main lobby, the spot every student, teacher, and administrator would pass. He wore a thin coat and held up a small board hung from his neck with a message scribbled in marker. "Sorry, I'm lost. I don't have a uniform. May I come in?" No explanation, no further words. He simply stood there with the face of someone waiting for a bus. They'd already missed. The first to pass was an elementary school teacher. She glanced at the sign, then kept walking. A group of middle schoolers came by. One whispered, "Probably a guest speaker pretending to be poor." Another smirked. "Maybe someone's scholarship, Dad." Then a well-dressed administrator paused. Not to help, but to gesture for security. He signaled Kenny. "Take care of this, will you? Cases like this don't look good for the school." Kenny nodded, walked up to Walter and lowered his voice. "Look, sir, this school has a dress code. If you want to come in, dress properly first. This is Brookshire, not a train station." In the steady stream of people passing by, only one person stopped. Maya. The little girl held an umbrella, looked up at him and asked softly, "Sir, are you lost? I can take you to the office to help find your family." Walter replied, "But I am not wearing a uniform like everyone else. Aren't you afraid I might be a bad person?" Maya shook her head. "If you were bad, you wouldn't have stood here waiting this whole time." Walter smiled. Not a big smile, but for the first time, he felt hope. A child with no name tag, no authority, was the only one who truly knew how to look at someone with her heart that afternoon. An emergency announcement echoed through the school's PA system. "All teachers, staff, and administrators, please report to the auditorium on the second floor. The school's founder will be making a special visit." The founder. The entire faculty buzzed with whispers. Some rushed to spray on extra perfume. Others straightened their ties and smoothed their hair. Even the head administrator was seen awkwardly lugging a banner that read the school's slogan hurriedly, hanging it behind the podium. Respect, responsibility, refinement. Once everyone had taken their seats, a receptionist slipped into the room and whispered, "He's here, but he didn't come in a Mercedes. He came by bus." The entire auditorium fell silent, and then the doors swung open. Walter walked in, no longer in a security guard uniform. He now wore a simple gray suit, pinned with a small lapel, the symbol of the school, a mark only the founder possessed. He removed the protective glasses he once wore while mopping the floors, placed them gently on the table, looked around the room and smiled, a smile, quiet and filled with a bittersweet calm. The entire auditorium went silent. Kenny dropped his coffee cup. A teacher nearly choked on a peppermint she'd been sucking on. The school administrator, the same one who had once ordered Walter to mop the supply room, shot up from his seat. "Mr. Grant, I didn't know. I truly—" Walter raised his hand, just a small gesture, and the room fell instantly quiet. He stepped to the center of the stage. His voice was low and calm, but it rang out clear. "I didn't build this school to manufacture perfect replicas of successful people. I built it so that children from anywhere could learn how to be meeting." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, the suspension notice he had found folded in the suitcase. He held it up. A child was suspended because her uniform wasn't new enough. "So let me ask you, if I had once been judged for my clothes, would I even be standing here today?" No one said a word. At the back of the hall, Maya stood holding her backpack, still and silent, but her eyes, bright and proud, were the only ones in the entire room that never looked away. The meeting didn't last. As long as people expected, Walter didn't get angry. He didn't slam the table. He didn't shout slogans. He simply said one sentence: "I'm not here to assign blame. I'm here to reignite the flame of kindness that I once lit in this very place." The next day, a school-wide announcement was made. A mid-level administrator was suspended pending investigation for the policy of filtering scholarship students out of media events. A teacher received an official reprimand for inappropriate remarks, and security guard Kenny was transferred to the night shift at a satellite campus. He responded by immediately requesting a 3-month leave of absence. But what stirred the most conversation among staff and students was the news about Maya, the 4th-grade girl, daughter of a janitor. Walter personally hand-wrote a letter to her mother in neat blue ink. "Dear Ma'am, your daughter has taught me and this entire school a lesson in kindness that requires no uniform. Starting today, Maya will receive a full scholarship until graduation, and if you'd be willing, I would be honored to invite both of you to lunch, not as the school's founder, but as someone who was once gifted a slightly burnt muffin. I will never forget." As for Selena, the girl whose suitcase had been left behind, Walter also sent her a personal letter of apology. Not through a teacher, not through administration. He stood at her classroom door, himself knocked gently and said, "If you still want to study here, then go ahead and put your suitcase away, and bring your gaze with you, because we need more eyes like yours to remind the grown-ups how to treat people kindly." That suitcase, once dismissed as worthless junk, was now displayed in the new principal's office beneath a clean glass case. Inside were the same old books, and a single line written in careful handwriting. "Even if no one welcomed me, I still loved this place." 2 weeks later, the gates of Brookshire shone under the gentle morning sun. Walter no longer stood watch, but his nameplate founder remained mounted at the front, just below a newly installed bronze plaque that gleamed in the light. "It's not your grades or your uniform. It's the way you look at others that makes you truly worthy of being called kind." Walter launched a new program. Its name, Look Deeper. Every student, teacher, and staff member, no exceptions, was required to attend a series of special classes on compassion, on unconscious bias, on body language, eye contact, and how we sometimes, without realizing it, make others feel like they don't belong. At the first session, a video was shown, surveillance footage from the day Walter stood at the entrance, pretending to be a stranger. The room fell silent as everyone watched themselves turning away, walking past, lowering their heads or pretending to be busy. And then Maya appeared on screen holding an umbrella, looking up and asking, "Sir, are you lost?" The entire hall broke into applause, but Maya, sitting in the front row, simply blushed, scratched her head, and whispered, "I just did what my mom always tells me to do." From that day forward, things began to change. Students started saying, "Good morning, sir," whenever they passed the security guards. Teachers made an effort to learn the names of quiet students in the back rows. And in the corner of the schoolyard, a small free library was installed named the Suitcase of Knowledge. Anyone could donate or borrow books. No ID, no sign-ups, just a genuine desire to read. And Walter, he didn't show up every day, but people often saw him seated on the stone bench at the far end of the yard, the quietest spot on campus, with a small notebook and a warm cup of tea. He didn't write much, just turned to the first page, the one he wrote when founding the school. "The child who can see others with a fair and open heart is the one who will go on to change the world."